somewhere along the lines, there's a few things happening in sport, but especially rugby league. To coach rugby league, you cannot have fun. Somebody's just slid that in there. You've got to be intense. Coaches, all of a sudden, soon they put the whistle and put the clock around the vest, they get in there, and they're intense as all. And everything's got to be life or death. And why are you laughing? Why you enjoy yourself? We're here for... Well, people learn through fun, I'll tell you. You make it a fun environment, your kids, your players. Not only will they come back, they'll learn a hell of a lot faster. You'll win more games. I tell you, a fun environment, you'll win more games. You can still challenge your players. You can still make it matter. You can still tell them that ain't good enough. And at some stage, you're going to have to fire one across them, for sure. But in the main, it's got to be fun. But at some stage in sport, nobody's allowed to talk about win. Peter and I were having this debate midweek. It's a dangerous, dangerous word to have. But I wouldn't apologise, I don't apologise for wanting to win. I want to win. Why are we in the sport? I want to win. Why do you play the game? We're not a social club. We're not a community club. We're actually here to win. And I'm not talking about the professional side. I'm talking about amateur time. Why do your players turn up on a weekend to have fun, to be with the mates and all that? Does it matter whether they win on a Sunday afternoon or a Saturday afternoon? Absolutely it does. For sure it does. One end of the spectrum, coaches always talk about, we've got a great culture, we've got a great environment, and we've performed. When you talk about performance, the performance and winning debate goes on forevermore. I think coaches give themselves an out sometimes. I think coaches give themselves an out, both with the owners, both with the players, and with the whole club. And they always talk about performance. They always talk about performance, and it's always about performance. That's almost an out, so it doesn't really matter whether we won or lost because we've performed. Is performance important? In my opinion, it's huge. It's absolutely huge. Of course you've got to perform. What is a performance? Performance is something that you've worked on in training, in my opinion. This is my version of it. Something you've worked on in training that you then take into a game. And you've been working on it in training for a number of weeks, whether that be a particular move or a strategy for defence or just the way you manage the game. You want your kickers to get the kicks away, but how do they get the kicks away if their lead-up plays are not effective? So you really practice your play 4, play 5, and then the kick itself, and you get the kick away and you convert from offence to defence really efficiently. And that's a performance. You worked on that, and it's happened in a game. You might lose the game by 2 points. You've lost it. For whatever reason, you've lost the game by 2 points. But you've performed, for sure. So there's a performance. The environment, you're there to create an environment as coaches. If I go to Dudley Hill and I see a group of players who are mouthing off at the referee and giving the referee a gobful and an ill-disciplined group, if I see Jamaica doing what they do, and I just go watch that team once and I go, yeah, that group's, them players there, the particular players themselves, they're a bit of a gaggle. They're a bit ill-disciplined. I come back next year, I see the same players doing the same thing. Right, I still got to start making a judgment about the coach now. If I come back the year after, and if you're talking club level, you might talk weeks after, towards the back end of a season, and you go see the same players and the same coach allowing the same players to do the same thing, carry on the same thing, you make a judgment about the whole environment. There's some clubs out there that have a poor environment. So 1 or 2 players that's ill-disciplined, of course you're going to get that. Corey Maitland told the referee to f*** off, that we can't legislate for everybody, but the environment would correct him. Your environment should correct him. You, as a coach, are very, very important to that environment, about how your club operates. Of course, the owner has a bearing. And if you, as a coach, aren't bringing that environment into tow, then your owner should get rid of you if he's not happy about it. And the culture's a bit about how you operate with each other. We clean up after ourselves. We're always in the right gear. We're always on time. We never leave the field with strapping. We always clean up our water bottles and bring our own water bottles. There's a bit of a culture thing. But I'll tell you, some coaches say that's more important than that. Now, I've been very, 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 very fortunate, really fortunate. In the last couple of years, I've been successful. So you might think, oh, well, it's easier for him to say this. Honestly, I would think this when I was coaching Eastmoor in Wakefield, Eastmoor Amateur Dragons, under 8s, under 9s I was coaching there. We were there to win, absolutely there to win. But at some stage, you've got to fall on one side or the other. Which one are you? What type of coach are you? There's a danger, in my opinion, in going too far on that and making it all about that. Because at some stage, your players are going to win. I'll give you a story. I coached London Broncos, very similar to coaching over here, which is not a well-known sport. So London Broncos, when I first got there, had loads of overseas players. They had out of a 25-man squad, they had 20 overseas players and 5 British lads. And then the RFL brought some rules in and said, we've got to change this around, we're going to have more homegrowns, we've got to promote your own. So over a course of about 4 or 5 years, that needed to change. So out of a squad of 25 men with 20 overseas, we needed to have 20 British and 5 overseas. Didn't happen overnight, it took about 4 or 5 years. And in 2009, we announced our squad and it had, I think, about 4 overseas. And it was like a big moment for London. And everyone's saying, that's good. You know, the British game's in good shape, and especially in London where it's hard to grow, that must be great. During the season, we had some wins, some losses, we're going all right. And then we lost at Bradford at home. And the starting team had 12 British lads and 1 overseas, a fella called Luke Nunn. He was the only overseas lad in the team. And I'm sat there as a coach, even before kick-off, proud as. You know, we've changed the culture, we've changed the environment, we're going to perform. And I'm leaning towards that because this is where the rules are saying we've got to be. 12 blokes out there, we played really competitive against Bradford and lost. But it almost didn't matter. I'm still on a high because the culture and the environment, and we're growing and we're going to be more British and we're going to have more London kids playing. And go see the owner, David Hughes. David Hughes is the bloke who owns Broncos. He's put millions and millions of quids in over the years. He's mad as a bag of frogs, but he's a great fella, and he's the reason London's alive at the moment. But he doesn't get any of this, David Hughes. He ain't bothered about it, he's a trader. He doesn't own a company. He just picks a phone up and buys a load of LPG gas across the world. And he's under pressure. He buys it for 400 grand or something, and he's under pressure to sell it for 450 grand, literally minutes later. And if he doesn't, he loses his money. So he gets paid 94 grand a year. That's true, he does get paid 94, but his bonuses are in the millions and millions a year. But he's a trader, and that's his attitude to trade, and he's winning. I've got to seal the deal. So I go see David afterwards and say, tough loss that, David. And I'm starting to slide in some of my old, but it doesn't matter because we got, some British and London lads in there. He said, what are you talking about? I said, well, David, the journey we've been on, it's a great journey we've been on. We're hugely reliant on overseas players. We slowly brought it through. In 2009, we're here today. We've got majority of the lads are British. Just lost to a very strong team in Bradford by 2 points. 12 of them were British, 12 of the 13 were starters were British. Brian, we lost. I mean, he didn't say these very words, but this is the philosophy he gave me. I don't give a shit whether we've got overseas, whether we've got British, Canadians, Americans, I don't give a shit. We didn't win. You better get down to training, you get up there on a Monday morning, you make sure we win the following week. And he almost just like pulled the rug right from underneath me. And it just completely diluted all that. And it was a big moment for me. It was a really big moment for me. We're in the industry to win. Well, listen, I am. And I know this, I'm in the paid ranks. But I don't think this should be frowned upon. This part here should ever be frowned upon. I don't think this should be a dirty word. But as Peter rightly said midweek, and I'll finish off now, I spoke too much. The balance you strike between these two can ruin you as a coach. I think if you're going to get it wrong, I'd rather you get it wrong here than here. I don't think it should ever be all about winning. You can't be all about winning. What's in between? Right. That says process. I think the process you go each week to making sure that your culture, your environment, and your performance is in good nick. The process you go through to ensuring that's a win is probably the most important word up there on the board.